Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. In today's video we're going to discuss mantles. So this is a custom built mantle that I did for our home, and if you want to find out more, stay tuned. Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dan Shannon. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby and being out in the shop. On this channel, dive deep into my shop as we explore tools and tool reviews, as well as chatting about everything related to woodworking. If this grabs you by the tool belt, please subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this. Shop Talk with Dan the Man. In today's video we're going to talk about mantles. If you're new here, welcome. If you're already a subscriber, thanks for coming back. So a few things you want to go over when building a mantle. So in my home we had a brick structure that was here resting on the base, the hearth, and it was quite large. It came out to about here, and I can show you a picture of that. And over time we thought, well, it needed a new insert. That was bad. The lining was shot outside, and my wife said, well, instead of having this bricked in heatilator system where the air gets pulled in from the top grates and blows out the bottom, the power goes out, you can't cook on it, and you can't really use it because the fans don't work. So why don't we get a freestanding stove and install that? So I said, yeah, let's go ahead and price that out and see what we'd be looking at. So I did all the renos with help of my brother-in-law and my brother. We were able to get this project up and running. So first thing first, we had to take out the brick. So I'll show you a photo of that. And then after we got the brick removed, I noticed the bottom hearth plate from here back was missing, so we had to re-brick it. So I got my brother to give me a hand with that, so we were able to do some masonry work and re-brick the back flooring so that the stove had something to set on. Well, fast forward, after all that's done, I had to do some drywall work up here, drywall work on the back, because that was all exposed after I ripped that out, and I'll show you a photo of that. But when we got to the end, I thought, well, we need something on the back. So originally we thought we could repurpose a lot of this brick. So it's going to take the brick and bring it up the wall, do a nice little cap, and make it kind of old school looking. But then my wife, we got to talking, and we thought, well, maybe we should build a mantle. I said, well, I've never built one before, so I went online. A lot of times, things are online, pictures, even YouTube, you can go find videos. But I just wanted to get an idea of what type of mantle I wanted to build. Sometimes you can get a big beam, like there's different types. There's a big beam with brackets coming down, to hold it in place. So it's kind of a floating mantle. That's a cool look. But for this house, my wife said, I kind of want the old barn board look. And so I said, well, I'll shop around to see what we can come up with for materials. When buying material for your mantle, you need to look up the regulations for your stove. So the older stoves, you had to have them quite a bit away from the wall, and you either had to have brick or piece of metal flashing, some sort of a heat conductor, so that your burnable, combustible materials weren't exposed to the heat. Well, the modern stoves, in this particular case, this is an Empire stove, you can actually have it very close to the back wall and use flammable materials because it has the clearance that it needs. So my hearth on the floor had to be a certain size for the pad, and then of course my building materials. But say my hearth wasn't, the original one wasn't that big, I would have to change the materials that I used for this back mantle. So anyways, fast forward, went online, got some ideas together, and then my wife said, let's do an old school kind of old board, barn board, beat up board look. So I found this at Home Depot. So this is just pine boards, and they're kind of beat up. They got knots in them. They put like a stain on them, and they're rough cut. So they're you know, if you touch them, they're not soft, nice and sanded. They're really rough. So they kind of give that old barn board peel, which is the look I was going for. And so when I first started off, I thought, well, let's grab a book. So that's what I did. And then I went to draw, you know, this mantle that I was going to build. So the best thing to do, see if you already have your hearth plate on the floor, normally you build your mantle first, and then you tile the floor or do brick or whatever you're going to do for the hearth plate. But in this particular case, the hearth plate was already here. So all I needed to know was the overall width of the hearth plate, and then that would give me an idea on how big my mantle needed to be. Well, in this particular case, I wanted to bring my side pieces out past the brickwork. I think that looked really nice. I did a couple of like kind of trial and error. So I took a board and I just placed it on the base, and then I kind of gauged what it would look like, put it up against the wall, stood back, looked at it, moved it over. So you can kind of do a little trial and error that way to see what looks good and what doesn't look good, because sometimes you'll maybe even cut it and then you put it on and it doesn't look the way you want. So just kind of play around with it. But once you kind of get you know, the visual, so I like to take a notebook and take a pen or pencil, and actually we'll just sit down for a couple hours of the coffee, and then I'll just draw in roughly what I want it to look like. And it kind of gives you an overall visual, and I'll take the measurements, the height that I want for the mantle, and of course you can find a lot of that online, the different codes, the different heights, all that for your standard mantle. So I kind of got that average height, and then I ran my tape and of course brought it up so then I could get the height of all my different boards. Well, in my particular case, the middle section wasn't actually drywalled yet, and I know for code from the stove to the back, so that it took out some of that width. So we're only talking about like ½ inch, but still that's another ½ inch from the back of the stove. So I did these boards here on the face. I had them inset into the studs. So they're just inside the drywall on the inside before I put my two end caps on this mantle. So I'll give you, you know, kind of a close-up video of this mantle, and then I'll talk to you about how I installed it. So let's jump into that. So to build my mantle the exact way I wanted it, after I drew it on paper and kind of looked at it to see all the measurements, I then needed to cut it and put it on the wall. So I first started with these middle boards. I cut them to length, and like I said, it was the drywall and then the stud. So the stud was right around here. I was able to inlay this entire middle section all the way up into where the studs are. And then I was able to screw them just inside this facial board all the way down on both sides, securing them on the inside. And this project was really hard because I didn't want any screw holes anywhere. I didn't want to do a countersink and then do a plug. I wanted to have everything perfectly seamless to make it all look like it was one piece, which took a lot of thought behind it. And in the end, it looks quite nice. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So after I did the inside pieces, I wanted to make sure that this piece here was level before I cut my end pieces, because if this was slightly off, then of course when I installed these, if there was, say, quarter inch or something, you'd have a gap between there and also the brick. You'd have a gap. So I want to make sure that was as tight as I could get it for the most part. And of course, wood will shrink and expand, odd times of the year. Like there's actually gaps here you can see, but when I originally installed it, there was no gaps. So because the wood stove dries out the wood, you get the gap. So that's just kind of a side thing. But anyways, so I wanted to install this piece first, make sure it was level. So then I took the width of my facial board and made sure that it was the exact length from here to that side. And then once I got that overall length, I wanted it to stick out slightly. And then I could kind of gauge the look I was going for. So that's how I got this board. And how I attached it was I actually screwed it in. So these are 3 different boards. There's one board that runs from here to here, and then there's this board, the second board, that's on the outside, and that stops to about here, and then of course the top cap piece. So those are 3 different boards that I kind of made look as one piece as best I could. So I put the screws, countersunk them in underneath this board first, all the way along, and once those were countersunk and in place, and I glued it as well, then I put this piece on the outside, ran that along, and in order to attach that without putting screws, say, in the front, I glued it, and then I did toenail screws from the corner right down into the stud on the back side of the piece, toenailed it into the stud with really long screws. And then that's how I attached that. And of course the top I wanted to make seamless as well, but the only way to do that was to actually do some pre-drilled holes and then put some actually I can't even see them, I did such a good job. There, here somewhere, I put some screws in. Oh, here's one here. You can see it. So I did some countersinking right along the top, and then of course I sunk it into this board below, and then one in the back. So I have 2 screws every so often all the way along the top cap. So over time, if you put anything heavy on here, it won't twist forward. It'll be nice and planted. And then I cut out, I used this wood again just to get that top surface because I wanted it to blend in nice. I just took my plug cutter, cut the plugs, and then sunk them in, cut them off, and then sunk them in with glue. And I just put them just below the surface, so they look like they're one piece, as you could see with that one that I pointed out there. So I think it turned out really nice. And then on the ends, to conceal, because obviously you have your cut with your saw, I took the table saw and I ripped just a hair, like a shaving. You can kind of see more on the top. Yeah, there's a slight gap there. I didn't quite glue that one quite good enough. But you can see that there's a little tiny scab of the top surface of the board. And I did this one as well. And I took an X-Acto knife and I cut out the pattern. So I put the rectangle piece over top here. And then on the back side, I took a pencil and just pencil lined the guide for the line, and then took an X-Acto knife and then shaped it. so that at the end it looks like it's always been there, and it looks like one piece. You can't see the gap. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And then after this was done, I was able to cut these to length, and I actually just used adhesive on the back because yet again I didn't want any screws, and since this was already into studs, I didn't need to worry about weight for this to do a follow through. So it wasn't like there was going to be a TV up there. We just got like a pitcher, a couple mugs, and like a candle, like decorations at Christmas time. But for the most part, it's just for decoration. There's no weight. But had you had a TV or something that you wanted to put weight on, I would definitely recommend doing these with screws, just for the transfer of weight to the base. But in my case, it was just aesthetics, so I just used adhesive on the back side and then stuck them. So I used tape. I used tape on the wall here and on here just to keep them in place while it was being glued. There's no way to clamp that, so that's what I did for both sides of this mantle. As you can tell, same type of cutting I did, and end piece. This board I wasn't too happy with. Over time it twisted a little bit, so it stuck out, so I just slid another piece of that covering, facial covering. Actually this one comes out because I didn't know if it would expand or not, but I just cut a little piece and then I slid it in there just to cover it up so it looks nice. And yeah, it's supposed to be kind of old school, kind of beat up looking, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just think about that when you're doing these types of projects, you know, depending on the look you're going for. Kind of the more errors. I really like these knots. I chose these boards because they had knots in them. I really like the character. And yeah, in the end, I think it looks very nice. I got these racks made for the wood for either side, so I'll show you a photo of that, you know, at the very end. But yeah, I'm very happy with how it turned out. Some people will build fake mantles, and what I mean by that, there's no wood stove, there's no floor hearth piece. It's literally a TV up on the wall, and they just build a mantle just to kind of make it look nice. Or you can actually build one, and in the back here you'd have a cutout, and you'd build it out a little bit for an insert, so electric insert. Some people have gas. So yeah, just get out there and be creative with your projects. You know, it turned out nice. I'm really happy with it. I've never done it before, so don't be shy getting out there and trying something new. You'll never know. You might surprise yourself with what you can come up with. Thanks for watching today's video. And if you're not part of the Shop Talk family, please click on the subscribe link down below. That way you'll be updated on any new videos that I have, any new content that I come out with. And if you have any questions or any comments, you can leave them below. And as always, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to click on this video here. Have a great day.